Okay, so today we're going over the review for your test to be taken tomorrow with this trigonometry stuff. So one thing to remember is on the colored piece of paper that you have, remember you can write anything you want to on there, and you'll be able to use that on your test. So make sure you get good notes on there and make sure you have it with you tomorrow for your tests. Okay, so everything on here basically is trig. There's a couple things from the unit just before. We'll talk about that when we get to that. But one thing I want to remind you of is SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. So I definitely would write that down on your colored piece of paper there to remember that. Okay, so remember the S of SO is sine function. And then this O and H is opposite and hypotenuse. All right, the C on Ka is cosine. And the A and H is adjacent and hypotenuse. And then the T of TOA is tangent. And then the O and A is opposite over adjacent. Remember, on sine, you always set it up like that. It's always the opposite on top, hypotenuse on bottom. On cosine, it's always adjacent over hypotenuse. Never the other way around. You'll never put the hypotenuse over the adjacent. That'll give you the wrong answer. And then on tangent, it's always opposite over adjacent. So just be careful for that. So on number 1, I'm looking for this side right here. Here's the x. All right, so first of all, here's the angle that I know that I'll be using, this 62-degree angle. So the first thing I'm going to do is label H, A, and O. And remember, label it in that order. Label the hypotenuse first, adjacent next, and then opposite last. It'll help to eliminate confusion on several things. So the hypotenuse is this side, the longest side. Remember, the hypotenuse is like where the right angle always points towards it. So that's the hypotenuse. Next, I'm going to label my adjacent, which this side is the adjacent because it's the side that is right next to the angle. It's the one that touches the angle. And then that makes this one the opposite. It is on the opposite side of the triangle, okay? On the other side of the triangle. So now as I look at those three sides, the H, A, and O, decide which one of those is not needed for this problem. In this case, the A is not needed. There's nothing there. I'm not looking for it. I don't care about that. So on this one, the O and H are the sides that I care about. So I'll go back to SOHCAHTOA, figure out which one of those uses O and H, and it's right there. It's the SO, and again, the S reminds me to use sine. All right, so we have sine of 62 degrees equals opposite 20 over hypotenuse x. Sine of 62 equals 20 over x. Okay, so now what we need to do is find out the sine of 62. And remember something very important here before you type anything in your calculator is you need to make sure that it's set to degree mode. Okay, so on your calculator, make sure you're set to degree mode before you do anything. Okay, if it's set on radians, you're going to get answers that are totally wrong. So one way to change it is to hover over this and click on it. It'll change it to degree. Some of these calculators have not been updated, so if it hasn't been updated, you can't do it like that. The other way to do it is to push doc 72, and they'll bring up this menu, and then you want the second line to say degree there. So it's the first thing to check, make sure you're set to degree. Okay, on this we want the sine of 62, and we're going to say 0.88. All right, so 0.88. Okay, now remember whenever the x is on bottom, we're going to divide. So you may want to write a note down about that. So if x is on the bottom, you're going to divide. If the x is on top, you multiply. So you may want to write something down about that on your colored piece of paper so you won't forget. So here, x is on the bottom, so I'm going to be dividing. So it's going to be 20 divided by 0.88. And type that in your calculator, 20 divided by 0.88. And that should give you 22.73. All right. Next one, number 2. An aircraft takes off and climbs at a constant 28-degree angle until it reaches an altitude of 8 miles. So that's right here, 8 miles. What is the plane's horizontal distance? That's this from the airport. Okay. So here's the angle. And again, HAO. So I'm labeling the H first. So the H is right here. That's the hypotenuse. It's the longest side. It's pointing towards it. Okay, this is the A, the adjacent, because it's right next to this angle, and that makes this the opposite. Okay, so on this one, the H is the one I do not care about. There's nothing there. I don't know that. I'm not looking for it, so I don't care about it. This side is the side I'm looking for, so I care about that, and I know this is 8 miles. So O and A is TOA, tangent. So tangent of 28 degrees equals... And so remember, on tangent, we always put opposite on top. So here the opposite is 8 over the adjacent x. All right, so the tan of 28, just typing that in my calculator. Tan of 28 is 0.53. All right, so with the x on the bottom, we are going to divide. We're going to divide. So 8 divided by 0.53, and that's going to give about 15.09 miles. All right, next, number 3. Okay, so this is like stuff we did yesterday, and we really didn't have a lot of time to spend on this. So, all right, this angle right here is 32 degrees. That's not inside the triangle I'm looking at, because the triangle I'm looking at is this triangle right here. And that 32 degrees is not inside there. So what I have to do is think about, well, how can I use that 32 to find an angle inside of there? And it's easy. If this angle is 32, then this angle right here is 32. All right, so basically now I'm forgetting about that, and I'm using this one down here. Okay, so from this angle right here, we have hypotenuse here, adjacent here, and opposite here. So of H, A, and O, the A is the one I do not care about. So on this one we have O and H. That tells me to use the sine function. So we have sine of 32 degrees equals the opposite x over the hypotenuse 500. All right, so the sine of 32 is 0.53. Now here, the x is on top, so I'm going to be multiplying. So I'm going to do 500 times 0.53, and looks like that gives me exactly 265 feet. Okay, next one, number 4, says find the angle where the school is, so right here. So I'm looking for this angle. All right, so we have H, A, O. Hypotenuse is the longest side. The adjacent is the side right next to the angle. And then the opposite is the side on the other side, across from the triangle. So as I look at those three, the H is the one I do not care about here. So the O and A are what's left. So O and A is tangent. And I'm going to set that up like that, opposite over adjacent, so 30 over 40. Now on this one, I'm looking for the angle. So remember, when I'm looking for the angle, that's where I use the little inverse function. So I know I'm using tangent because of that, and because I'm looking for the angle, I use this one that has a little -1. All right, so I'm going to go tan inverse of 30 over 40. And that tells me that that angle is 36.87 degrees. All right, 36.87 degrees. All right, next one, number 5 says the legs of a 45, 45, 90 are 12. It says how long is the hypotenuse? Okay, so you could use trig here, and that'd be fine. But this just goes back to what we did in our last unit. So on a 45, 45, 90, if you remember, these two sides are always the same, and then the hypotenuse is that times the square root of 2. So 12 times the square root of 2. And then if you just type that 12 squared root of 2 in your calculator, it gives you 16.97 feet. Okay. Next one, number 6. So what is the length of the longest side? The longest side is going to be the hypotenuse. I'm looking for that. So here's the angle I know. We have H, A, O. Of those, the O is the one I do not care about here. So this time it's A and H that I'm looking at. So A and H, ca. C tells me cosine. So cosine of 30 degrees equals the adjacent 20 over the hypotenuse x. All right, so cosine of 30 is 0.87, we'll say. Okay, now x is on the bottom, so we're going to be dividing. So 20 divided by 0.87. 20 divided by 0.87 and 22.99 is the answer there. Okay, number 7. A linen in the shape of a square has sides that are 12 inches long. If the napkin is folded along the diagonal, what's the length of the diagonal? So really this is the exact same thing as, well, it's the exact same thing as number 5. Because those are 12, this is going to be 12 square root of 2, because this is just a 45, 45, 90, so that's 16.97 again. Okay, number 8. All right, so from this 59-degree angle, we have H, A, O. On this one, the A is the side I don't care about, so O and H. So that tells me S, to use the sine function here. So sine of 59 equals the opposite x over the hypotenuse 42. All right, so in my calculator, sine of 59 is 0.86. And since the x is on top, I'm multiplying, so I'm going to do 42 times 0.86. And that's going to be about 36.12. Okay, number 9. So same thing. So here's the angle. So we have H, A, O. O is the one I don't care about. A and H, ca. C tells me cosine. Cosine of 54 degrees equals the adjacent x over the hypotenuse 76. Cosine of 54 degrees is 0.59. X is on top. I'm going to multiply 76 times 0.59. And we get 44.84. And again, one thing you can do, just look and see if it makes sense. Is it reasonable? The hypotenuse is 76. It's got to be the longest side. 44.84 is less than that. That's good. If we would have flipped that upside down or divided there, we would have gotten something bigger than 76. We would know we got the wrong answer. Okay, so on this one, both of these are 4. An equilateral split. So actually this is kind of like a Pythagorean theorem problem here. Or you could recognize this as a 30, 60, 90. From here to here is half. And then from here to here you multiply by the square root of 3. So this would be 4 square root of 3, which is 6.93. Okay, number 11, so we've got that, H, A, O, I don't care about the O, A and H cosine, so cosine is 63 equals x over 24. Cosine of 63 is 0.45. I'm going to multiply 24 times 0.45 is 11.25. Okay, number 12. All right, it says that the angle of elevation is 35 degrees. That's right here. It says that x is 3.5. So what I'm going to do is just scribble out that x so it's not confusing us. It says x is 3.5, so I know it's that. So just scribble it out and put the 3.5. And I know it's hard to see, but the y is actually like right here. Okay, it's talking about this side right here. The height of this satellite stand. All right, so from our angle right here, we have H, A, O. I don't care about the H, so it's the O and A, TOA, tangent. So tan of 35 degrees equals the opposite y over the adjacent 3.5. Tan of 35 is 0.70. The variable y or x is on top, so we multiply, so 3.5 times 0.7. 3.5 times 0.7, and that should give us 2.45 meters. Okay, now number 13 is asking for the measurement of this angle. All right, so here's our angle. We have H, A, O. H is the one I don't care about. O and A tells me tangent. Opposite over adjacent, 7 over 3. Now remember, since I'm looking for the angle here, I'm going to use the tan inverse function. So I'm going to go tan inverse of 7 over 3. I'm just going to type that in my calculator, tan inverse of 7/3. That tells me that that angle is 66.8 degrees. All right, number 14. So this lifeguard's in the observation chair. All right, let's see here. The lifeguard is 12 feet above ground. All right, so there's the line of sight looking down to this person. The angle of depression is 21 degrees. That's from here to here. And it says, what is the horizontal distance, which is this from here to here. Now remember, this 21 degrees right here is from the line of sight down to this line. It's not this angle. So what I'm going to do is just recognize that that's 21, this is 21, and now I'm going to scribble this out so it's not confusing. All right, so from here we have this angle, we have H, A, O. On this one, the H is the one I do not care about, so O and A is tangent, so tan of 21 degrees equals the opposite 12 over the adjacent x. Tan of 21 is 0.38. And since the x is on bottom, I'm dividing. So 12 divided by 0.38 tells me 31.58, not degrees, 31.58 feet. All right, number 15. At a topiary garden, Emily is 12 feet from a shrub shaped like a dolphin. From where she is looking, the angle of elevation to the top of the shrub is 47 feet. If she's 6 feet tall, what is the best estimate for the height of the shrub? Okay, so you got this shrub over here. It's in the shape of a dolphin, whatever. Okay, so she is 12 feet away. Okay, so on this one, it's accounting for how tall she is as she looks. Okay, so she's standing here. She's 6 feet tall. And the angle of elevation to the top of the shrub is 47 degrees. So what we want to know is we want to know the height, but what we have to figure is we've got to find this first, and then on top of that, we've got to add her height, which is 6 feet. But we'll get to that 6 feet in just a second. So let's think about this. All right, so 47 degrees, we have H, A, and O. This is the side I'm looking for. So on this one, I don't care about the H. I want to know how tall this shrub is, so there's the X. So we have O and A tangent. So we have tan of 47 degrees equals the opposite X over the adjacent 12. So tan of 47 is 1.07. I'm going to multiply. So 12 times 1.07, and that gives me 12.84. But that's from basically where she's looking here up. It's up an extra 12.84 feet. And she's 6 feet, which, of course, that's not to her eyeballs, but we're just going to estimate. Okay, so 6 feet here for her height plus the extra 12.84 here. So I'm going to add those. And so 18.84 feet. Okay, number 16. HAO, cosine of 28 degrees. SOHCAHTOA, adjacent x over hypotenuse 12. Cosine of 28 is 0.88. X is on top. I'm going to multiply 12 times 0.88. And that's going to give me 10.56, whatever units. Okay. So on number 17, all right, this is 45 degrees. Yeah, so this is the same thing as number 5 and 7. Both of these are going to be the same, and this is 100 times the square root of 2. Which, as a decimal, that's going to be about 141.4 feet. Okay, so you have this eagle that is 350 feet in the air. It spots prey, mouse or something down here. It sees that. Angle of depression is 25 degrees. Remember, that's from here to here, so we're going to put that in here. And it says, what is the horizontal distance? That's this. Okay, so I'm going to scribble out this 25 because I use that to get this angle down here. So we have H, A, O. On this one, the H is the one I don't care about. O and A tells me tangent. So tan of 25 degrees equals opposite 350 over adjacent x. Tan of 25 is 0.47. X is on bottom, I'm going to divide. So 350 divided by 0.47. And that gives me about 744.7 feet, we'll see. All right, next one. Jesse's building a ramp for loading motorcycles onto a trailer. So the trailer is 3 feet off the ground. To avoid, Jesse decides to make the angle between the ramp and the ground 18 degrees. So he wants this to be 18 degrees. And find the length of the ramp, which the ramp is actually this part right here. So that's where the X is going to go. So from this 18-degree angle, we have HAO. On this one, the A is the one I do not care about. So O and H, this is so, sine. Sine of 18 degrees equals the opposite 3 over the hypotenuse X. So sine of 18 is 0.31. X is on bottom, we're going to divide 3 divided by 0.31. And that's going to give us about 8 feet? Somewhere around there. Okay, and also I want to say on these words, these word problems, on most of these, I will have most of this sketched out for you to help you to figure out where stuff goes. So just to let you know that I'll have a lot of that sketched out. Okay, number 20 says, in the flower garden, what is the measure of angle X? So it's looking for this angle right here. So we're going to have HAO. The hypotenuse is the side I don't care about, so this is toe of tangent. And remember, when I'm looking for the angle, I use the inverse. So tan inverse of opposite over adjacent, 76 over 48. And that's going to be about 57.72 degrees. Then number 21 says, what's the measure of the other angle? Well, we could do trig, but we also know that the three angles have to add up to 180. So, and I know this angle right here is 90, so I could do 180 minus 90 minus 57.72. And that tells me that that angle is going to be about 32.28 degrees. All right, this last one, number 22. An 18-foot ladder forms a 72-degree angle with the ground. The top of the ladder rests against a building to the nearest inch. How high up the building does the ladder reach? Okay, so there's a couple things we got to think about here, but first of all, we've got this ladder that's leaning up against the wall here, and it says that this ladder is 18 feet. And it says that the ladder forms a 72-degree angle with the ground. And it wants to know how far up the wall that this hits. So it's actually using this right here. And what we're wanting to know is this, is how far up the wall does it hit? So we're looking for this distance right here. So from this angle, we have HAO. On this one, the adjacent side's the side I do not care about. So opposite in hypotenuse, this is so. This just tells me to use sine. Sine of 72 degrees equals the opposite x over the hypotenuse 18. And sine of 72 is 0.95. X is on top, so I'm going to multiply. So 18 times 0.95. So it tells me 17.1 feet. Okay, so remember on your colored piece of paper, put anything you want to on there. So make sure you get stuff transferred on there that will help you on your test. Make sure you get the SOHCAHTOA stuff down. Make sure you write a note on there to remind you about making sure it's in degree mode, that type of stuff. Write down some examples of this. Get some of that on there to help you on your tests.